It's wonderful to have you all here. And transitioning to a new space is not always easy, but this is pretty nice, huh? I love it here. We usually meet downstairs on the first floor with the giant screen, but this is looking pretty good. So I'm excited about being here. For those of you who were unable to catch our program last month when Jaco talked about his trip to Cuba and to the Guantanamo region, if you missed that program, it's on our YouTube channel. So you can go to the website and scroll to the bottom, and there's a link to our YouTube channel, and you can watch that program, previous programs. Almost all the programs we've had since COVID are on our YouTube channel, so that's great. I'm Juliette Berger. I'm president of Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance. Our new name is still tripping me up a little bit, but we're getting there. We're really proud of our new name because we do a lot of bird things and we do so much more. Matthew Spohr, our field trip chair, is planning dragonflies, butterflies, moths, reptiles, nature walks, tree walks, everything you can imagine, in addition to all the bird-related content. And as we know, everything's related, right? Our birds eat those caterpillars that turn into moths. Our birds eat some dragonflies too, and they're all part of our web of life. So it's fantastic that we are expanding our knowledge beyond birds. At the beginning of all the programs, I always read our diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. So I'm going to do that if I can find my phone. Doesn't want to show me what I have just bookmarked. So what I'm going to say is that the birds that we all love come in such a diversity of colors, shapes, sizes, sounds, and are different in all ways, some of them from each other. And we believe that bringing the diversity of the human species into our group will bring the best ideas and the best energy for moving forward with our mission, which is to encourage folks to be interested in the natural world and in conservation. So we welcome everyone, regardless of their gender identity and their expression and their race, religion, and all of the other statuses. And hopefully our name change has made it obvious to everyone that we really do intend to welcome every person into our group. Next time I will make sure my tab is still there, but it's better to hear me sort of ad lib because the DEI statement is much longer than that. We usually do interesting bird sightings at the beginning of our programs, so I'd like to throw that out to the audience, and Kathy's going to come around with a microphone for you so you can say what your interesting bird sighting is. Oh, Don Swartz has an interesting bird sighting.
Thank you. I was just birding while I biked 12 miles today in Dexter, and I parked at the firehouse lot. If any of you bike, that's a fantastic place to go. And the birds are all there, week after week after week, through May, now into June. And it was particularly just joyful for me to hear the great crested flycatcher. I couldn't see it, I couldn't find it. Anyway, I was biking, but I could hear that thing.
Fantastic, great crested flycatcher at the Dexter Firehouse trailhead for the B2B? Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Dawn. June Howard has a bird sighting. Hi, June.
Juliet assures me people know that the ospreys on the cell phone tower at Skyline High School have successfully hatched, and we got really good looks. I mean, you need a scope, right? But really good looks at 2 nestlings today, being very rambunctious. It would be the only word, you know. And it was, and we saw the mail come and deliver dinner. You know, she was looking around like, where is that DoorDash? You know, I mean, it was a great watching. So it's right. If you just set up on the hill right at the parking lot, it's fantastic.
Thank you, June. June's talking about our ospreys, which are nesting at the cell tower at Skyline High School. And we have a good breeding bird survey volunteer there through the city. I work for natural area preservation with the city parks. And I also keep track of that species because they're special concern species for the state of Michigan. So we've been watching them nesting very closely for the past 5 years. And the first 3 years, they did ridiculous things and screamed at each other and didn't have any eggs or nestlings. Last year, they had 1 young, which we were very, very excited about. So we're super thrilled to have 2 this year. Yeah. Any other amazing? Don, you've got the floor.
Yeah, those of you who know me know that my favorite place to bird in the whole county is Embry Road, and it's celebrated cerulean warblers. Well, I was in Jackson County the other day on an exploring venture, and I found the Jackson equivalent of Embry Road. It doesn't have showy lady slippers, and it doesn't have cerulean warblers, but it has prothonotary warblers.
Ooh, nice. Thank you. What's the name of the road?
You expect me to divulge that? I know. Pierce Road.
Pierce Road.
It goes south off of Sharon Hollow. Just immediately after you get into Jackson County. It's the first road south off of Sharon Hollow.
So I don't know what type of bird it was that I saw the other day, but it was, I think, yesterday. And then you guys having this meeting today kind of got me excited. So I'm going to go back and try to photograph the birds. I live in the west side of Ann Arbor over off of Maple and Pauline, or I'm sorry, Stadium and Pauline. And I was over at Kroger and decided to go behind Kroger just to go exploring. Because there's, some nature stuff back there right next to the highway. But when I was back there, I found a bunch of new baby birds that looked like little road runners. And their mama was close by, and they were running around pretty excited, kind of like freaked out by me. And then the mama was definitely trying to, so I took off, but I'm like, I want to go back and kind of figure out what those birds are.
You have found a bunch of baby killdeer.
Oh, is that what they are?
They nest behind Kroger. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Killdeer babies are the cutest thing in the universe.
I'm like,
and they run around like little road runners. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna go back and videotape them.
Fantastic.
Set up my camera.
Send that to us.
Bravo. Thank you.
Thank you. Killdeer. All one word. Killdeer. Oh, Matt.
So I'm gonna break tradition a little bit here, and I'm gonna talk about something that wasn't a bird that was interesting. We held our first moth night of the year Friday before last at Furstenberg, and I had to put a bunch of pictures up on iNaturalist, and Susan Kelb, who many of you know, member of the Alliance, later ID'd it as a 4-lined cream moth, which was interesting because it was the first sighting in Michigan on iNaturalist, and there was only, I think, 78 or 79 observations in the country of this moth, and so very little is known about it. They suspect that its host plant is false blue indigo, and there's another one in the Amorpha genus that they think may be the host plant. So that was pretty cool, and I'd put a plug in for our moth nights and our butterfly walk on Saturday.
Yep. Thank you, Matt. Butterfly walk on Saturday at 10 a.m. at Mathi Botanical Gardens. And Jerry Paulison, who's a butterflyer in our area and also on the butterfly and the breeding bird survey at NAP, is going to be our leader for that. So it's pretty exciting. A couple more announcements. Some of you might know, if you read your newsletter this month, that I'm planning to retire as president of Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance, and the retirement date has been set for June of 2025. So I've got another year to be your president, and I also will always be on the board. Past president is a Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance board position. So we are in the process of searching for new officers, and we have a nominating committee, and I'd like to invite Jessica Domschek up to share a little bit about our nominating committee and give an ask for members of the membership to join our committee.
Thank you, Juliet. It goes without saying that you are going to be leaving some big shoes to fill. So we hope as a nominating committee to have a rollout of our search process at the August 11th annual picnic and potluck that we're hosting at Dexter Huron Metro Park. So that is a Sunday, 12:30 to 3:30. We hope everyone can come. We'll be talking about the successes from the year past, celebrating all of our major milestones, and rolling out what our plan is as a nominating committee. So,
And the Wingnut Award.
And the Wingnut Award. For those who don't know the Wingnut Award, it is an honorary award that we give out to the birder who has found the most birds in the calendar year just passed within Washtenaw County. So that is a great opportunity to come get to know more people who are members of Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance, just have some great camaraderie and help celebrate the successes from the year past, but also we'll be rolling out plans for our timeline for that nominating process. So the nominating committee members are myself as secretary of the board, Keith Dickey, our treasurer of the board, Dana Novak, our conservation stewardship chair, and Matt Spohr, our field trip chair. And we would love to have 1 or 2 members of our wider Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance membership to serve on that nominating committee as well. So if that's of interest to you, we're going to be ramping up our work starting in the next month or so here and really getting our boots on the ground and trying to find ourselves a wonderful next president. So please reach out to me if you're interested, and later in summer we'll be putting a lot more details on the website as well. So thank you so much. Dawn, you have a question?
What time is the picnic on August 11th?
It will be 12:30 to 3:30. Right now the website has a different time, but that will be updated. So thank you so much. And Juliet, back to you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jessica. And for those of you who don't know, I've been president of your wonderful Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance for 10 years this month. So. And as I said to Jessica and the board the last time she mentioned that there would be big shoes to fill when I retire, that I wasn't the person that I am today when I became president of your organization. Grown so much, and it's due to all of you and the love that you have and passion you have for birds and our environment that has given me the courage to be a bossy and do the things presidents need to do. Yeah. Thank you. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Don Chalfant. Jessica or Matt, do you remember who Mike said he had planned for September and October for our speakers? No. I know in October, Bryn Martin will be here to talk about the Madagascar trip, but we have a different speaker lined up for September, and I don't know who that is. But for the matter at hand, we have Don Chalfant. He's a retired Ann Arbor Public Schools teacher, very popular speaker with Washtenaw Audubon Society. He's also a wingnut, Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance, 10-time Washtenaw wingnut. He's splits his time between Michigan and Florida. He's a fantastic photographer, and I think you will all agree that he gives a darn crackin' good program. Give a warm Washtenaw Bird and Nature Alliance welcome to Don Chalfant.
Tonight's program is quite different for me. I'm going to do as little talking as possible because the birds that I'm going to present to you are going to do all the talking. When I first thought of this idea, I'm wondering, well, in what order should I present the birds? And I was reminded of an old story by some of you are old enough to remember Irma Bombeck. She was a lady who was she had a fantastic sense of humor. One of her stories was that she was with a group of women who were all bragging about their kids and their accomplishments. And one had a son who was going to become an attorney, and one had a son who was going to become a businessman. And they said to her, "Well, what about you?" She said, "Well, my daughter writes for the newspaper. She writes obituaries." And they said, "Well, what's so difficult about that?" She said, "Well, you get get these people to die in alphabetical order." So I obviously don't think that alphabetical order is the best way to present the birds. If it were just birds, I decided, well, let's do them in sort of categories, and so away we go. I'm sure my volume is up as high as it needs to. The first group is waterfowl, and away we go. As you can see, I not only have inserted the sounds to each of the slides, but photographed the birds in the act of vocalizing. That's really the secret here. And I will say that I have the two things that are most essential qualities to be able to do that. Number one, I have a good camera. And number two, I have lots of time. I'm retired, and as my wife will tell you, I spend almost every day doing some work in the field, photographing almost everything. Everything from, as I say it, everything from worms to whales, including flowers and lichens and mosses and butterflies. My favorite is dragonflies, but tonight it's birds and their vocalization, okay? As Juliet said, we split our time between Michigan and Florida. And some of the birds are birds that you're going to hear tonight. You won't hear them, I don't think, unless you go to Florida. But you might. Just about everybody does. If they're a birder, they go to Florida sooner or later. The wood duck has actually two calls. In the South, it has a nickname it's called a scream. They're called screamers, and this is the screamer call. Yeah. It isn't as loud as it should be. It also has a little bit of a chattering kind of call. Oops. That one has both calls on it. Okay. These are the ones that you're more likely to hear than see. We have enough volume, do we? Okay. There's a place in Florida where that we bird regularly that at the right time of late March, early April, you can't go 10 minutes without hearing a limpkin call. Not that you'd want to. This is one of those more often heard than seen. And this is one that's rarely seen. Or heard. Here's another Florida specialty. Now, what female anhinga could possibly resist a call like that, huh? Yes?
I was thinking that you would be giving calls and songs, but now I'm confused. Are you going to be telling us what the call is or the song?
Well, we haven't done any songbirds yet.
Mike, please. You give them the microphone if people can't hear you.
Oh, thanks. Hello?
I haven't shown you any songbirds yet.
Okay, so I need to learn something. So the birds that you showed, like the cranes, do the males and females make those sounds?
I don't know. Yes. Tell you the truth, do they? Yes. Okay.
When you talked about one female not being able to resist the call, I thought, oh, so these are all going to be males' songs that you're presenting.
Primarily they are. But and the songbirds especially, they're males. They were called, and of course they call for two reasons, either to define territory or to attract a mate, or both.
All right, thank you.
This is the one you'll hear on that commercial that says it's an eagle. It's not, it's a red-tailed hawk. In Florida, this is the default raptor, actually, and it's often some of them are very hard to separate from blue jays. Whether the blue jay is imitating the hawk or vice versa, it's hard to determine, but they're very similar. As you see, Don, that could hardly be called a song. Brown thrasher sings in couplets. Everything it says twice. I shot this photo just last week. It was on the roof of the house next door. It was an improvement over the previous one, so I just moved it up. The winter wren, I think, holds the record for length of song per gram. The little flycatchers seem to put their head way back when they call. Seen any of these lately in Washtenaw County here? Would you like to? They're regular in the winter in South Florida. Those of you who've been around for a while remember our beloved Tex Wells, who was very hard of hearing, as you'll remember. But the eastern and western meadowlarks look almost identical, but he said he could tell the difference in their songs very easily because he could hear the western, but he couldn't hear the eastern. If he could hear it, it was a western. This is the southern equivalent of our black-capped chickadee. Black-capped has 2 notes to its song. Caroline has 4. Some of the photos you'll notice are not all that good quality. This one in particular and a couple of the others, but they're the only ones that I have of the birds actually in the act of vocalizing. I got much better photos, but their mouth is closed.
Don, are these your recordings as well?
No, I got them from the Cornell library. No, I haven't. That's beyond me to do sound recording. I haven't learned to use my cell phone yet, let alone, you know. I wish they were all that loud. Sounds like a robin with laryngitis. Now, the last couple of groups, you're going to have to take my word for it that they were calling, because, believe it or not, they call without opening their mouth. They sometimes do, but they often don't. This is one of them. Frequently, if you watch doves and owls, the other group, when they call, you can see their throat vibrating, but their mouth doesn't open. I think I've photographed the immatures making like distress calls, and in that case they open their mouth. But when they do the regular calls like this, their mouth does not open. It sounds a little bit like the barred owl. Who cooks for you? One of my favorite birds. And one of the rarest birds I've seen. Once. As you can see, there's a lot of Florida birds mixed in here. I expect you to remember every one of these now, you know. There's a mnemonic for this one if you're trying to learn it. If you own a cat, you might even like it even more, because the mnemonic is here kitty 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 kitty, here kitty 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 kitty. I can't even hear this one. Sorry. 3 buzzes. I can't hear that one either. I have my volume up as high as it'll go. Sorry. All the grassland sparrows have one thing in common, and that is that they have, they're hard to hear. And you're hearing that. All these grassland sparrows are the same. They have very thin, whispery calls. This one is louder, not a grassland sparrow. Red jungle fowl is a countable species in South Florida, by the way. If you're a bird lister, they run wild in Key West and the Keys. As this is a countable species in South Florida as well. And if you want to put it on your life list, go out to Myers Road. There's one that lives out there. Just got this one in May up at Whitefish Point, calling. Here we go. As I said, these birds can call without opening their mouth. You can see the vibration in the mouth, in the throat sometimes. Don?
So now I'm wondering, are these the birds' songs, which the male exclusively gives, or are these?
Song, I call it a call. But
Yeah, so you're saying these are calls and male and female
now
both do these?
Well, the great horned is, I think I can differentiate between the male and female great horned. The one with more notes is the male, and the one whose voice is lower and fewer notes is the female. With raptors, the females are larger than the males, and I think in the case of this, I think it's the female owl that has the lower, richer voice, and she just responds with like 3 or 4 notes, and whereas the male says hoo 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 hoo, and the female says hoo 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 hoo.
And so what we just heard was back and forth between male and female?
I think so.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you, Don.
You could substitute a garbage truck backing up here and you wouldn't know the difference, I think. This bird, I can tell you, a friend of mine and I in Florida stood with this bird for about 20 minutes, and it called constantly and never opened its mouth. This is the Who Cooks for You. It also has a call that goes, ho ho, and it also says, ho 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 ho, who cooks for you? The throat was vibrating the whole time. It was a fantastic experience. Now we're into songs, okay? I remember when I first started birding, oh goodness, back in the late 80s, before some of you were born. I went to Point Pelee, and I ran into a man there who I was so impressed. He was probably in his 70s, and he seemed to know his bird songs, and I was really impressed with that, being a real beginning birder at the time. He said, yeah, he said, it took me 25 years to learn these songs, and then I lost my hearing. So I can speak from personal experience. That's a fact of life that we have to deal with. But we've enjoyed their songs for years. Here we are. These are warbler songs, if you can call that a song. Bee buzz is the mnemonic for it. Bee buzz. You can hardly hear the buzz on the. This one's a little. Oops. We skipped Tennessee. My friend in Tennessee would be very unhappy with it. Let me go back to Tennessee. Yeah, it's not loud enough. Yellow is the one you're probably more likely to hear than any other warbler. Here. And I can confess to you that I still have a hard time separating chestnut-sided from yellow song. They sound very similar to me. Whoops. Pine. Here we go. Whoops. I'm sorry we're not getting more volume. I have my computer up as high as it'll go. let me say there again, two of my favorites, and we're finished. Some finally relief, huh? The upland sandpiper and the wood thrush are two of my most favorite calls. The upland sandpiper because it's so unique in its call. You girls have probably heard a lot of this when you were younger. Right, Carol? Uh-huh. And my favorite song, Save the Best Till Last. Once we got into the grassland sparrow, I better speed up here because you can't. I'm sorry, I thought you couldn't hear me.
No, we can hear everything. No, we can hear it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you heard it. And heard all those grassland sparrows who sound pretty much the same.
Don, a question. How did you choose the birds that you wanted to include in your listening?
The ones I had pictures of with their mouths open.
Don says they're the ones he had pictures of with their mouths open.
Yeah. I remember way back when I was here year round, and the first field trips I led in those days was, we called them owl prowls. And I remember one of the guys, one after one of the trips, because I used to try very hard to get everybody in the group to be able to hear a screech owl, if not more, sometimes all three owls, all three Washtenaw County owls, that is. And he said, boy, I'm impressed with how patient you are. I said, Mike, I said, I'm not patient, I'm just stubborn. And I think the secret, as I said earlier, of photographing birds in the action of vocalizing or in flight, if that's what you want to photograph, it does require patience or stubbornness, as it would be for me. It also requires a good camera, and as I said earlier, it requires time. And fortunately, I have time, and I try to use it to this end. Hope you enjoyed it. Yes, sir.
So a lot of the birds are commonly heard in the morning. Do you know of birds besides owls that are calling at night? Like do you know any species in the area?
That's a good question.
The best time to hear birds is the morning. In fact, when we used to do big days, we always used to plan where do we want to be to hear what's called the dawn chorus, because they just, you know, and back then, I've never been as good with bird song as some of the people I birded with, which is one of the reasons I birded with them. But when there's a dawn chorus, if 10 birds are singing all at the same time, I couldn't tell you which any of them were. If they all sang one at a time, I'd know every one of them. But so I knew my bird songs, but it was a cacophony. That's a great word. A cacophony of sound at dawn. They really like to sing in the morning. When I go out now, if I want to see birds, I go in the morning as early as possible. But at night, or right before sunrise, is a great time for owls, of course. One year I did a big year for owls, and I went out and I must have, I don't know, I probably, I'm sure I saw 150 owls just in Washtenaw County. Or I just shouldn't say I saw, I heard 150 owls. One year, Michael Kelb and I had a contest on Christmas Count. I think we had a bottle of wine on to the winner, as I remember, on who got more screech owls. And in my Christmas Count area alone, I had 22 screech owls in one night. There are a lot of screech owls out there, at least there were. Of course, this was 35 years ago. A lot of those owls are no longer there. And a lot of it is because of, well, you can call it urban growth, And it's also suburban growth. The woodlots are still there. So you say, well, why aren't the owls there? Their prey base is no longer there because a lot of the cornfields have been taken up, and the fields have been taken where the mice used to live. They're subdivisions now. The woodlots are still there because people like to see woodlots. They don't like to see scrubland, however, which is where the prey base was for the owls, which is one of the reasons we don't have as many owls as we used to. I'm convinced we just don't have as many birds as we used to also, but I don't know if I've answered your question. I know I've rambled. I do have a habit of doing that.
I can take the mic. There are some other species of birds besides owls that call at night. The eastern whippoorwill is the one we have locally, and if you headed out to the Green Lake campground out in the Pinckney area, you could hear the eastern whippoorwill at night.
For 3 years, we had a Chuck-Will's widow that was just west of us, barely into Jackson County. People were always hoping it would move over into Washtenaw so they could count it on their Washtenaw list. The whippoorwill says, whippoorwill, whippoorwill, and the Chuck-Will's widow says, Chuck-Will, widow. But they're very similar. They're the same family. They're nightjars in that family. And the nighthawks, too. I think one of the problems with a lot of the birds right now, their prey base is deteriorated. I don't know if you've experienced it, but do you notice there aren't as many mosquitoes as there used to be?
We're happy about that.
Yeah, but the birds aren't. The birds don't have anything to eat now.
The other thing too is bugs on the windshield, right?
Oh,
That's not a thing.
on our way to Florida in, last year when we went south in November, we were down around Tennessee. I said, Lori, you can look at the windshield now and you can see why we don't have as many birds as we used to. One bug on our windshield. It used to be that when you drove to Florida, every time you stopped for gas, you washed your windshield too. Now, no, the bugs aren't there.
So part of the insect apocalypse is because of the neonicotinoid pesticides that are being used on crops, paralyzing and killing most of the insects that they encounter, and also killing bees and other pollinators, or causing the whole bee colony to collapse. Native bees are in trouble because of neonics. Make sure that when you're buying plants for your garden, you don't buy plants that are pre-treated with neonicotinoids. That's the thing in some of the discount and maybe even some of the name brand garden centers use neonics in the soil or in the seeds that you buy to plant, okay? And because of climate change and other factors, insect populations are really crashing. And 90% of our bird species that nest around here feed insects to their young. So you can imagine that survival rates for nesting birds and their young are going down. We've lost 30% of the birds that we had in the 1970s to now. That's 30 billion birds, okay? So we can all do our part in our own yards to plant native plants, which support native insects, which support native birds, and other native animals. And be careful about applying pesticides. Use natural methods if you can, and never use neonicotinoids. Even you can go onto Amazon.com and get them in your mailbox if you're a Prime member the next day, and put them all over your yard, and you'll kill off all your bees and all of your other pollinators. And also we have the crops that are planted that are genetically modified with insecticide already in them. So when the bugs eat the BT corn, they die from eating them because there's a gene inserted for the bacteria that kills off insects. Yeah. I just want to mention before Don is done that September's program will be Ram Ramamurthy giving us a program on the birds of South Africa. And we may or may not have a program in July. We're still trying to drum up a speaker. So if you are interested and have a program to present, let me know or let Mike Sefton, our program chair, know. In August, we will be having our annual picnic on the 11th instead of a program here at the library.
So I've done a lot of nature-based education programs, and one of the things that has always come up as a debate is whether or not it's appropriate to put out bird feeders. I've heard it's inappropriate because a lot of people tend not to keep them up year-round, and then I've heard it's okay. So based on whatever experience everybody has here, or you two, I was curious what your opinion is on that.
Is this working? Yeah. So I don't have a problem with people feeding birds in the wintertime, as long as once they start feeding, they feed throughout the winter.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. So if you've attracted a population of overwintering birds into your yard and then you go away for a month, they might be in trouble if your neighbors don't have a feeder. If you live in a neighborhood where there are lots of feeders, it's not a big deal. You must clean your feeders. You must use a diluted bleach solution every few weeks to keep bacteria in the spring and the fall from growing on your feeders. And I do not feed in the summertime, only hummingbird nectar. In the summer, 90% plus of our birds should be feeding insects to their young unless you're putting insects on your feeder. You know, people put out jelly for Baltimore Orioles and that type of thing. It's just really encouraging Baltimore Oriole babies not to know how to find their own food and only to know how to go to jelly feeders. So I don't recommend that. In the spring and the fall and the winter, I think it's absolutely fine as long as you keep your feeders and the ground below your feeder clean, raked out, and sterile, because we do have diseases like avian influenza that occasionally get into the population. Now, the avian influenza that's coming through our area is mostly with waterfowl, so I'm not so concerned about songbirds spreading that. I have chickens in my yard, so if I had any ducks that were visiting my feeder, I would shut that down. But I'm not feeding except for hummingbird nectar at this time. Some people don't agree with me, but that is my opinion. Dawn?
I wanted to say more about the nighttime callers. The bird nightingale probably is a bird in England.
Dawn, the microphone is coming. Oh, thank you.
Oh.
We were talking about birds that call at night, and we have the nighthawk here in Ann Arbor. You go on Main Street and look up, and you will hear them, and you will see a white V on each wing, so you'll know they're nighthawks. The chimney swifts also tend to come in the evening, and chitter, chitter, chitter up in the air. Always look up when you hear that.
I don't think we've had nighthawks in Ann Arbor for a couple of years. But it used to be, on Main Street, they were a given.
They are in Ypsilanti.
Okay, Ypsilanti then is the place. By the ale house, amazing. Well, yeah, I really haven't seen them since COVID, to tell you the truth, because I haven't been out to Ann Arbor in the evening. But I wanted to ask about nightingales. Are you familiar with that bird, and are they called nightingales because
It's a European bird.
So they call
we
it
don't
night,
have them
though?
here. There are many songbird species that also sing at night. Mockingbirds do, henslow sparrows, sedge wrens. Lots of birds have reasons for defending their territory and attracting mates at night as well. But most rails and bitterns, that's right. But most of our birds are most active in the early part of the morning. I want to thank Don again for such a wonderful program. Let's give him a round of applause. And thank you all for coming and finding us up here on the 4th floor. And a big thank you to the library for hosting us this month and every month.